of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, as well as the Intelligence Committee, Republican Senator James Risch of Idaho. Senator, thanks very much for joining us. Let me get your analysis. First of all, ISIS claiming responsibility for the suicide car bombing attack near the U.S. consulate in northern Iraq in Irbil. They say the consulate was their target. They wanted to kill American diplomats, military personnel. You're on the Intelligence Committee, the Foreign Relations Committee. What can you tell us about this attack?
Well, first of all, that hasn't been confirmed as yet. However, having said that, it is more likely than not that it was ISIS, and certainly the consulate was the target. What's interesting about this is Irbil, as your story just pointed out, is a city that has been really relatively secure. It's a city of about 1 million people, and it is very heavily Kurdish, if not almost all Kurdish, and it's very hard to penetrate. So this would have been a very, very sophisticated operation, and one that would have been very difficult to pull off.
Are Americans safe there now? Because there are a lot of them, hundreds of them at the U.S. consulate there, and a lot of private citizens are there as well. The U.S. has a good relationship with Kurdistan.
We do have a good relationship, and we need to continue to cultivate that relationship. They've been good friends of ours. They've been reliable. They're excellent fighters. Having said all that, in answer to your question, are they safe? Safe, I guess, is a relative term when you're talking about the Middle East. But they're certainly safer there than they are in many other places, be it Yemen or be it Baghdad or other places in the Middle East.
There's a lot of controversy right now over what General Dempsey, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said yesterday, referring to ISIS now closing in, taking over 2 hugely potential places in Iraq, the city of Ramadi, that's about 70 miles from Baghdad, a major city in the Anbar province, also moving in on the Baiji oil refinery, the largest oil refinery in Iraq. General Dempsey said at that news conference at the Pentagon yesterday that the Baiji oil refinery is strategically more important than the city of Ramadi. He seemed to suggest that if Ramadi fell, it would be a setback, but it wouldn't be as bad necessarily strategically as the oil fields. Listen to this.
The issue here is not brick and mortar. It's about defeating ISIL. So, as I said, this is, I would much rather that Ramadi not fall, but it won't be the end of a campaign. Should it fall, we got to get it back.
There's been a lot of criticism of him for saying that, including from your Republican colleague John McCain, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. What do you think?
Well, I think what John was complaining about, or at least putting John's comments into context, I think he's more upset with the fact that the administration keeps spinning the story that, it's not so bad. Oh, yes, it is. You listen to these news stories that go on and on and on. There's just no good news coming out of there, with the one exception today, which you've already mentioned, and that is that the King of Clubs was finally caught. That's about the only good. And interestingly enough, he was caught and killed by the Iraqi security forces. That's about the only good piece of news coming out of there, and it's pretty de minimis compared to all of the other things that are happening. You haven't even touched on Yemen yet while I've been sitting here.
We'll talk about that in a moment. I want you to stand by, Senator. A lot more coming up, including AQAP, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, making major inroads in Yemen, what that means for the United States when we come back. Tonight, new video of Saudi airstrikes in Yemen. The air campaign is now in its 4th week. But Yemen's civil war rages on, giving terrorists an opening to gain dangerous new ground. We're back with Senator James Risch, a member of the Foreign Relations and Intelligence Committees. What do you make of the fact that AQAP, arguably the #1 terror threat to the United States, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, has now taken over an airport in southeastern Yemen? They've certainly wanted to launch airstrikes against the U.S. homeland, if you will. What does this mean?
Well, Wolf, I think, first of all, what you have to do is, looking at this from way up and down, you got to blame this whole thing on Iran. It's Iran that enabled the Houthis to topple the government that was in place there in Yemen. And once they did that, as we've seen, it deteriorates there every day. There's a vacuum because the government is gone. The Houthis are occupying part of it. AQAP is occupying part of it. And while everyone's been focused on Sana'a over more west, AQAP, as we've seen in the last 48 hours, has been very active in McCullough. And the pictures I think you've shown tell the whole story. That is McCullough, although it's 500 miles east of Sana'a, it really holds an important geographical position, and there should be more attention being paid there. But having said that, because of all the things that are going on, both in Iraq and in Yemen at the present time, and in Syria, things are so spread out, there's a vacuum that AQAP is filling, and it is a very dangerous situation for us.
Yeah, that's McCullough. That's where not only where that airfield, that air base they've taken over, but that's where a prison was emptied out of a lot of Al-Qaeda and other terrorists as well. So you're right on that. Here is a question, because you're a member of the Intelligence Committee. I wonder how good U.S. intelligence is. Less than a year ago, President Obama called Yemen a place where the U.S. counterterrorism strategy was working. You think he's getting bad intelligence, bad information? He also called ISIS the JV team. He gets a daily intelligence briefing. Is the intelligence community up to it? Because you get those briefings as well.
Right. I'm sure he gets the same information that we get. I'm astonished to hear him say that ISIS is the JV team.
He said that about a year ago.
You look at what but you look at what they're doing right now. If they were the JV team then, they've certainly matured quickly and substantially since then. To say that Yemen was the poster child for what we're trying to do, I mean, I wouldn't have said that when he said that. Certainly he was getting the same information we were getting. Iran muddles in our affairs whenever they possibly can. They love to poke a stick at us, and everybody knew at that time that they were supporting the Houthis militarily, financially, and every other way. And the Houthis were a viable force to topple the government, and they did it. And of course, now we see what's happening with the chaos that's taking place, and it gets worse every day. It gets worse every hour in Yemen.
Let's quickly.